Our business editor, Stephen Carroll, is with us here on set. Stephen, the talk late yesterday was Greece asking for a bit more time from the IMF. I mean, is there any chance that they're likely to get it?
In a word, no. But there's always a chance that these things could not go the way that most people expect them to. But let me explain the extension. Greece asked for more time for this repayment. That request, according to the IMF, will go to its board in due course. But the reason that it's quite unlikely to be agreed is because to get that agreed under the rules of the IMF, you need to have 70% of the voting rights on the IMF board, which means that the United States, but also France and Germany would have to agree to it. And they're very unlikely to do it because, of course, as some of Greece's biggest creditors, they're worried about not only the money that's lent to Greece via the IMF, but the money they've lent it directly. And as a result, they're unlikely to agree on one side to give Greece more time while holding a much firmer position on a European front. There is a precedent for this, though, to allow more time to make these repayments. In 1982, the IMF allowed Guyana and Nicaragua more time on their payments. But of course, the sums involved then and the politics were very different.
So no payments to the IMF, no bailout either. What on earth happens next then?
Well, there's a couple of things today that we need to watch out for. One is a meeting of the European Central Bank. They're going to be looking again at this emergency liquidity assistance. This is the emergency money they've been giving to Greek banks for months and months now to keep them afloat, essentially. It's around 89 billion euros is the amount they've given them. We know they've said they won't give any more for the moment, but they're going to be reviewing that assistance. And they could, now that Greece is, for the first time since 2010, without an international backstop for its money, they could require those banks to give more collateral in exchange for those loans. That could be something very difficult for those banks to do because we know that they've reached nearly the limit of the collateral they can give for that particular liquidity assistance. That could be a very difficult situation if the ECB decides to act in that way. They do so if they thought the banks were less solvent than they were yesterday. There's also that Eurogroup meeting that Natalie was talking about. They're going to be looking at this request for a third bailout that came from Athens yesterday because that has to go through a certain procedure because it's gone to the European Bailout Fund. But the position, as we heard from Jeroen Dijsselbloem, the position has always been they won't negotiate on a third bailout until the second one has been completed. And of course, that has now not happened. There's also interestingly to follow what's going to happen with the European Bailout Fund because they hold quite a lot of the loans to the IMF, loans to Greece, and missing a payment to the IMF, in theory, could provoke them having to call on their loans as well. That's pretty unlikely, though, at this stage.
The other thing, of course, everyone's following today is the markets. How are they likely to react, and how are they reacting already?
Well, so far, everything's pretty calm, to be honest. The markets in Asia are much more focused on what's happening domestically, or at least a little bit closer to home. We've got the main Asian markets trading up at this point in the trading day. The shares in Japan, I can tell you, being boosted slightly as a result of a survey of business confidence there. The Kospi in Seoul also up. Shanghai Composite, though, as you can see, a little bit down. No trading in Hong Kong today. The currency markets too, of course, we've been watching the value of the euro during this. The euro's been pretty resilient during the past couple of days of turmoil. We had seen that dip just at the start of trading on Monday morning, immediately reacting to the capital controls and to the referendum announcement. It went down to just under $1.10. It's at around $1.11. It hasn't really moved much from that over the past 24 hours or so.
Stephen, thanks a lot. Stephen and our business team and our team, of course, in Athens, continuing to follow this story for you here on France 24.